What's going on, everybody? It's Sasha, your licensed real estate market expert here in Charlotte. And today we're talking about the top 5 neighborhoods to buy a home in 2025. Now, in regards to neighborhoods, it's always tricky because obviously everything is subjective. What might be important to you might not be important to somebody else. So, are these neighborhoods an end all be all for the top 5? Absolutely not. If I was personally going to create my list, some of these might be on there, but for the most part, there are so many neighborhoods in Charlotte. We literally have hundreds of different neighborhoods in Charlotte and the surrounding areas to choose from. But again, this list is from niche.com, and they essentially are ranking these neighborhoods based off of their location, based off of schools, future appreciation, and things of that nature. So all in all, the list is actually really solid. There might be some neighborhoods you've heard of, others you might not have heard of before. And if you're in the market right now looking to buy and or sell, and you might be in one of these neighborhoods, this might be a good selling point for a lot of future buyers. So with that being said, if you have any questions about these specific neighborhoods and or any other neighborhoods in and around the Charlotte area, you guys always know you can call, text, or email me anytime. All my contact information is down below, and it's also going to be linked right here. So with that being said, we're just going to hop right into the number 1 neighborhood to buy a home in Charlotte for 2025. And that neighborhood is Colonial Village. Zip code is 28209. And in regards to location, you are very centrally located. You're just outside of South End, so you have Dilworth, Myers Park, and Sedgefield nearby. You're only a 10-minute drive to Center City, Uptown Charlotte, and a 15-minute drive to the airport. What makes this specific neighborhood, even though it's a very small niche neighborhood, what makes it so great is just that, the location. Even though you're located right off of South Boulevard, where a lot of the busyness and a lot of activity is happening, this neighborhood is tucked away and it feels very mature, feels very established. It is part of the Charlotte that was supposed to expand. Now you're still going to see some of the older homes that we have there, but you're seeing a lot of new construction take place in the area. So if you know anything about the general location in regards to South End, you know that South End is an area that's just been exploding these last 10 years especially, and it has everything you could imagine, from restaurants to nightlife to shopping. Being so close to Uptown, all the sporting events, the concerts, things to do, festivals, activities, the list honestly goes on and on. Not to mention, just up the road, you have Lower South End, which is one of the newer districts where a ton of activity has been happening. Now again, if you're somebody that's looking for a place that has the convenience, that has the walkability, that has that certain lifestyle, Colonial Village will definitely provide that for you. They are building so many new activities. They just opened up Rally Pickleball, which is kind of a pickleball court. You can get drinks, you can get dinner. There's talks of a new golf simulation type thing that's kind of going to have a similar feel. But this area has just been experiencing tremendous growth, and it will continue to do so in the future. So generally speaking, who is this neighborhood good for? In all honesty, I see a lot of young professionals in the area due to everything that is surrounding it. Me personally, I would 100% live there if I had kids, because you do have really high rated schools, and obviously the location is perfect. But if you do have kids, it might be something different to consider because of all the busyness and all the things happening around you that we just talked about. So in regards to the real estate, which is something I'm sure that you're thinking about, being that this is a very established neighborhood, most of the homes here were built in the 1950s and 1960s. However, with all the growth that's been taking place, you're going to see a lot of new construction happening here in the area as well. So homes in the neighborhood are going to range between 500,000 to about 1.2 million. Now, between 500 to 650,000, that's where you're going to have those older 1950s, 1960s homes that are about 1,500 square feet, even though a good amount of them are under that. They're around 12 or 1,300 square feet. in that 650 to 800 range, that's where you're going to see a lot of the 2,000 square foot homes that have been renovated, that have been remodeled, that are move-in ready. Once you start going above that, you're going to see some of the newer construction. However, I do want to mention the newer construction is most likely going to be townhomes and or duets. If you don't know what a duet is basically two townhomes that are together. Great thing about that, no HOA. A lot of them are actually going to have yard space, so there isn't those restrictions that you would expect to see in a lot of other communities. Now, one of the most important things I want to touch on is potential, future growth, and appreciation. This neighborhood has all three of those things. If you're trying to get into a starter home that's in the 500 to 650 range, if you're a young professional, your potential is almost limitless. The way Charlotte has been growing, especially this area over here towards South End, you could expect to see a lot of future appreciation. And or if you're in a position to be in one of those homes at this time, I easily see the land alone for these houses now and or in the near future being worth roughly around $500,000, obviously depending on the lot size. So if you live in one of these smaller homes and then in 5, 7, 10 years, hopefully you're in a position where you could potentially have the option to knock the home down and then build something that is new construction and that's potentially worth multi-millions once we get 10 plus years down the line. So the neighborhood has so many appealing factors that can draw people into it, but again, it might not be for everyone. With that being said, we still have 4 more on the list. So let's go into the second best neighborhood to buy a home in Charlotte for 2025. Next up, we have Sharon Woods, zip code 28210. Sharon Woods is located right across the street from South Park Mall. South Park Mall is hands down one of my dream neighborhoods. There's so much good things to say about South Park. We'll get into the specifics in regards to Sharon Woods because it might not be an option for you due to the prices. So South Park provides everything you want in a mature neighborhood. So when you think of South Park, think of kind of old money. You have some of the most beautiful and some of the most expensive real estate that we have here in the Charlotte area. You have a ton of fine dining restaurants. You have high-end shopping. You have the great schools. You're centrally located, being 20 to 25 minutes to Uptown Center City, Charlotte, and roughly about the same to the airport. And where you're located, you're right in between Uptown and then the suburbs just outside of Charlotte. So you essentially kind of have the best of both worlds in the South Park area. Now, I'm going to get into Sharon Woods here. Sharon Woods, because of the neighborhood that it is, because of the desirability, their turnover rate is not much. People usually, when they move into a neighborhood like Sharon Woods, they stay there for a long time. It's not an area where somebody's going to buy a house and then in 3 to 5, 5 to 7 years move unless they absolutely have to. So touching a little bit more on the lower turnover rate, in the last 2 years, there has only been 8 homes sold in Sharon Woods. Prices are going to range between 900 to 1.7 million. And 900,000, the home that sold over a year ago, was an absolute fixer. So to get into a more move-in ready home in Sharon Woods, you're probably going to be looking at about 1.2 million plus. Now, granted, the market is starting to shift a little bit. Make sure you guys are watching my monthly market reports in regards to that. So we might see some uneasing of the prices. It might give a lot more people an opportunity to get in the neighborhood. So a lot of the houses in Sharon Woods were built in the late 70s up to about the mid 80s. All of these houses are going to be the bigger homes, 3,000 plus square feet. But again, being in South Park, the general location is what draws the most people to the area. South Park was popular 20, 30 years ago, and it's still popular today. Multiple golf courses nearby. You have a bunch of different swim clubs, parks, places for activities. It honestly is a dream suburban neighborhood in my opinion. But if the prices are scaring you off a little bit, in all honesty, look at the entire zip code of 28210 and also look at 28211, which is bordering that South Park zip code. Now let's get into the third neighborhood, and that is none other than Sardis Forest, 28270. I personally have experience with this neighborhood because I lived there for 8 years and we still own our home that's in Sardis Forest. But for me, it's very different because 8 years ago, you were able to buy a single family home in the mid 200s. So for 200, 275, sometimes 300,000, you were able to get a 3-4 bedroom home. Unfortunately, those days are long gone now. However, speaking in regards to location, 25-30 minute drive to Uptown and roughly about the same to the airport. And with you being on that kind of upper edge, you're bordering the Matthews area as well. So with my wife and I living there for 8 years, we truly got to experience it. It's definitely a neighborhood you should consider in regards to price point and or establishment of the neighborhood. You have a voluntary HOA. There's a separate kind of swim club where you have access to the pool. A lot of times they have food trucks, they have coffee trucks. There's events where the neighbors and everything like that get together. Used to have a tennis court, now you got a basketball court. Great walkability because you got a couple shopping plazas, you got a movie theater and things like that. But for the most part, you will need to have a car. Schools, just like every other neighborhood in this list, are very highly rated and are ideal for families. My wife and I go to downtown Matthews all the time. With us still owning the house over there, we still drive by frequently. I even take my dog up there and walk the neighborhood. But location-wise, being on that outer edge, me driving to have to do showings and things like that, getting to Ballantyne, getting to Concord, getting to Huntersville, West Charlotte, all of that stuff is a breeze. So if you're okay with being 30 minutes outside of Center City, Uptown Charlotte, definitely check out Sardis Forest. Now in regards to the houses, a lot of those houses as well were built in the late 70s and 80s. You got a couple that were built in the early 90s. Now for your typical starter home, 3 bedroom, 2 bath, 2.5 bath, roughly about 1,500 square feet. On the lower end, you can find something in the low to mid 400,000s. However, a majority of the homes now are between 500,000 and 600,000. And they actually just hit a brand new record for the neighborhood. There was a home that just recently sold for 685,000. Now, it's a great neighborhood. As I mentioned, I love it. I have personal experience there. Do I think the houses there are worth above 600,000? At the present time, no. If you're looking for future appreciation, 5+ years down the line, I think eventually they will, because the trajectory that the neighborhood is going to is obviously headed that way. However, if you're looking, 500 to 600 is my recommendation. That way you have some built-in equity coming into the years to come. Now, Sardis Forest does have a higher turnover rate than Sharon Woods. In the last 180 days, there's been 24 homes listed on the market. Currently, 3 of those are pending, 2 are under contract, and 19 of those homes are closed. Now, if you want everything that we talked about in regards to a neighborhood and or location, you can always go to the neighborhood next door, which is Sardis Woods. And all in all, that general area is really fantastic to take a look at. So make sure you add Sardis Forest and or some of the surrounding neighborhoods general area to your list of homes. Now jumping into the 4th best neighborhood to buy a home in Charlotte, none other than Providence Plantation. Zip code is 28270. Same zip code as Sardis Forest because you're located relatively close to Sardis Forest. You're right off of Matthews Pineville Road, Providence Road, and then you have 485, which is our major highway on the back end. I've sold a lot of real estate in Providence Plantation, and it does not surprise me that this house is on the list, because if you're somebody that's looking for a unique area, being in Providence Plantation, you feel almost secluded, but you have everything at your fingertips. You have the Arboretum Shopping Center. You're 25-30 minutes from Center City, Uptown Charlotte, roughly about the same to the airport. You have downtown Matthews. Ballantyne is a 10 to 15 minute drive. The location, the neighborhood itself, in regards to the tranquility and the matureness that provides, is fantastic. Now, there is another section of Providence Plantation where you have houses that are a little bit closer together, that were a little bit newer built. But from my experience, a lot of what people want are those bigger lots. But Providence Plantation should definitely be at the top of your list if your price range allows. A majority of the houses in this neighborhood, because it is so desirable in regards to a couple things that we spoke about, you're most likely going to be $700,000 plus. They have houses ranging in the multi-millions, and there was just one recently that was listed for $3.3 million, and it went under contract in 3 days. So that just kind of speaks to the desirability of the neighborhood. The good news is if you're in the mid 500s, 550 to 600,000, a couple houses do pop up here and there. So if you want to be in Providence Plantation, have your search set, and when one pops up, be sure to take a look at it as soon as you can. This is a neighborhood where the trajectory will continue to appreciate because you have so much going on in the area, and it feels like a very true suburb. So Sasha, you've talked about houses built in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. Now let's talk about something new, newer construction. Number 5 neighborhood to buy a house in Charlotte, 425, was Pleasant Hill Road. I have no idea why they named it that, aka the Palisades. Zip code is 28278, and you are located right where Steel Creek is, and you're bordering Lake Wylie. So if you want to live next to a larger body of water, if you want to do water activities, definitely consider this, and obviously because of new construction. A ton of people want new construction due to a lot less maintenance and or the newer construction houses that they're building. They have the open layouts that people want. They have the square footage that people want. However, the one thing that new construction is lacking on for the most part is lot sizes. Lot size typically tend to be 0.20 to 0.25. So a fifth and or a quarter of an acre. However, this area has exploded like crazy because you have the Steel Creek area nearby, you have the lake access, you're roughly about a 35 to 40 minute drive to Uptown, and you're about a 20-minute drive to the airport because it's located on that southwest side of Charlotte. So in regards to the community, you have a lot of nice amenities. You have pools, fitness center, playgrounds, walking trails, tennis courts. All of that is coming in at roughly about $1,200 to $1,500 a year in regards to your HOA. In regards to the houses themselves, they were built in the early 2000s, 2005 up until the last couple of years ago. And house prices are going to vary between $500 up to a couple $1,000,000. However, that $500 to $600 to $650 price range will get you a 2,500 plus square foot house, newer construction, in this neighborhood. And again, having the Steel Creek area nearby and that lake access, you have a bunch of different shopping places, restaurants, grocery stores, all within a short driving distance of the Palisades. The Palisades is such a big master plan community that they had a school built nearby to accommodate for all the influx of people. Now, if the Palisades might be a little bit pricier and you're okay with maybe some houses built in the 90s just outside of the Palisades, look at the Steel Creek area, which is also going to be the 28278 zip code. Now, with that being said, you have a ton of different people moving to the area. You got people that want new construction. As Charlotte has been continuing to expand outward in regards to the prices versus the homes you get, it's still a really good bargain as of right now. All of these neighborhoods that we talked about in this video, I can see the future appreciation happening because of all these different things that we discussed. Let me know your thoughts. Do you think some other neighborhoods should be on the list and maybe kick out one of these that we talked about? And or do you think this list is pretty solid? In my opinion, we need a little bit more variety of a list. And unfortunately, Charlotte does not have that affordable housing that a lot of people are looking for. So all these neighborhoods that we talked about, starting point for some of the cheapest ones, which would be Sardis Forest, is going to be that $425 to $450 range. But again, you got to keep an eye out because a lot of activity is still happening in these neighborhoods. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope it gave you some insight. Any and all questions you have, call, text, or email me anytime. I'll catch you on the next one. Take care. Bye.